Now, how much have Western ideas, this is another fascinating point in your book, have Western ideas permeated or even changed the Muslim world, particularly the Arab world? Not so much as we think, I get the impression in reading your book.
Well, it depends upon which Western ideas. Certainly Western nationalism, I think, has changed it a huge amount. Throughout the period from 1500 right up until the eve of World War I, there was no sense. I mean, Arabs were aware that they were Arabs and that they were different from Turks, but they were part of the part of the Ottoman Empire, and they were very content to live as provinces within the Ottoman Empire. There were uprisings among the Christian provinces of the Ottoman Empire. You remember Serbia had an uprising and Greece had an uprising. By the end of the 19th century, both of them had achieved their independence. There was nothing like that within the Arab world because they looked upon themselves as Muslims, as were the Turks. And it wasn't until the seed was planted by, I would argue, by the missionaries, but began to grow, that the whole idea of nationalism took some root. And it didn't really spread. It didn't really spread until after World War I, when the whole Arab world was taken over by the Christian West. It was then that Arab nationalism exploded, and it was an explosion not just of, let's call it Arabism, but it was an explosion of anti-Christianity, anti-foreigner, anti-Westerner. Now, it is true that the Arabs rejected, over the course of time, a lot of Western ideas. They have not been very warmly disposed to accepting secularism, accepting humanism, and by humanism I mean putting human well-being on a level of importance greater than God. Ideas which have become the standard within Western society. The Arabs have had a lot of trouble with that, largely because these are ideas which are far removed from Islam, and they have trouble with them. And they have trouble with them then. You know, they don't have trouble with cars and computers and washing machines, but they do have trouble, in my judgment, with the intellectual and spiritual, if you like, framework that produced these ideas in the West. I have always remembered that my Egyptian friends will say, my grandfather used to talk about that, or my great-grandfather used to talk about this when I was a kid, that in 1900, Egypt was at about the same level of lifestyle as much of the Far East. And they look upon what's happened in Japan and Korea and elsewhere, where great new civilizations, great modern civilizations are thriving, and the Arab world has not changed a great deal since the beginning of the 20th century. And they are remorseful about this. I mean, there's no question about that. But on the other hand, they are not prepared to say that they want to abandon their Islamic values. They are very dedicated to their Islamic values. My judgment is that it's probably a package deal. You don't get one without the other. But Arabs have not embraced the idea of a package deal at all.